may remember me from my television shows in the 1980s and 90s, and now I host two regularly live streamed virtual magic shows. One is a showcase for some of the greatest magicians in the world, and the other is a talk show featuring some of the most inspiring conjurers of our times. Welcome now to Magical People. And welcome everybody to this week's edition of Magical People Live. We're very blessed and fortunate to have my guest this week, Mr. David Harvey. And David is a producer, writer, musician, and business executive. We're about to learn a lot more about him in a few minutes. How are you this day, David?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you. I'm enjoying the
Awesome.
sunny Southern California weather.
Yeah, so I don't think you can beat that. A former Easterner growing up, having grown up in Montreal, the eastern part of Canada, it was always our goal of a lot of the population to move to California or Florida. So we admire that greatly. And maybe one day we'll smarten up and do that. And you'll have this whole group of Canadians, moving down there. I'm so excited to get you on and honored as well. And I just want to briefly make reference to the artwork behind you. That's your wife and my good friend from high school and college, Linda Rakos's artwork behind you. And just to give a little bit of a shout out to her. And yes, I've got tons of notes here. I almost don't know where to start, but I think I'll start here. You're the founder and CEO of THK Media. And let's talk a little bit about that. What does THK Media do?
THK Media produces feature films, television shows, and we have a record label. We produce music as well, and music artists. And it came into being because my background was completely in the music industry, because the music industry changed significantly financially. It ain't what it used to be. And I
Yeah.
could see I could see the writing on the wall that, a lot of people were moving into film and television. And I had a neighbor who wanted to start a record label with me with some of the acts and things I was working with, and he had just produced a film called My Sister's Keeper with Cameron Diaz. So he had had his first box office success. It was a $100 million film, which for what it was a huge success. And he said, "Well, let's work together. I'd like to work on other things." So we wrote a script for a film, and it fell in the hands of our third partner, a gentleman named Howard Kazanjian, who produced Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so he started working on that film with us, and eventually he became our partner in the company because he had kind of gotten out of, as he called it, wanting to have anything to do with Hollywood. But he liked working with us. And, well, he'd done enough. He'd accomplished enough in his career. So that's kind of how it came about. I mean, we've done animated children's shows, different types of television programs. We're currently working on a film, which I'm very excited about, called The Warsaw Orphan. And The Warsaw Orphan is based on a New York Times bestseller by an author named Kelly Reimer out of Australia. And it's an incredible love story, heroic love story set during the World War II, Germany and the Holocaust, and really ugly, terrible things going on. But these two young people did amazing things. So we're very excited about that. That's kind of what THK Media's front burner is right now, with lots of other projects we're working on. But we feel that right now it's an important time to get out this film, because in the current day, there's a lot of anti-Semitism is higher than it's ever been, and anti-Israel. And it's mainly a lot among young people. They just don't know, you know.
Yes.
They don't
Yes.
understand. And by them seeing, it done in an entertaining way, because it never works to try to go head to head with your point of view versus that just doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And especially if you're older and they're young, they don't want to hear
Oh,
what you have.
sure.
So how do
Oh,
you
sure.
reach people? You reach them with art
Exactly. Yes,
and a love
so
story.
important. So important. And I'm also excited about, well, I think I'll show the sizzle reel. You've mostly spoken about the company, but let's have a look at this anyway.
Okay.
At THK Media, our mission is to create and market media properties that entertain, educate, and enlighten. Our executive team has decades of experience producing and marketing top entertainment brands that have generated over $30 billion worldwide. Emmy Award winner Howard Kazanjian has produced some of Hollywood's biggest blockbusters, including Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. He also served as vice president of Lucasfilm for over a decade. Mendel Tropper is a seasoned marketing executive who has created image campaigns for television networks and iconic brands such as Seinfeld. He also produced the hit film My Sister's Keeper starring Cameron Diaz. Producer, writer, and business executive David Harvey has collaborated with some of the top names in the entertainment industry, including Dr. Dre, Fleetwood Mac, and the Pointer Sisters.
And there we go. I had to do that, David. I hope you didn't feel too uncomfortable, but I love that sizzle reel, and I think it's important to share with folks where you're coming from.
No, absolutely. No, I'm working with incredible partners, wonderful people. And as you can see in the reel, my credentials come much more from the music industry so far. Getting ready to change that,
Yes.
you know.
Well, you know what? We were talking off camera, if you will, about music, its roots, its origins, and how far it's come. I think it's important to really chat a little bit about that because although some people are aware of the general roots of music, I think it's important we can touch on that. So let's go for it. You were mentioning the true roots of rock and roll and music generally.
Music generally. And just to give a little background, my background is I started playing guitar and piano at a young age and became very adept at playing almost anything in any style in jazz or rock or classical on both instruments. But when I moved to Los Angeles, I found out that it's more important to create and write songs than it is to be a virtuoso on your instrument. So I kind of shifted. And as recent of the last 10, 15 years, I spent a lot of time exploring the roots of all great music for all of time. And I actually our record label is based on a genre of 21st century rock, funk, and soul. And we're creating a special called Rock, Funk, and Soul, America's Greatest Music. And it's really one of the greatest things that America ever created, certainly in the music field. And understanding the background of that, rock pretty much comes from blues as well as classical, those white-haired guys from Europe. And funk comes from jazz. And of course, soul music comes from gospel. And to me, pretty much the greatest music always has those ingredients within it. Whenever I hear an artist that it's not that soulful, I find it boring.
Yes.
It, if it's not a little edgier, like rock music is, and rock music encompasses a lot of things. I mean, there was Bob Dylan, there was folk, it encompasses lyrics and it encompasses usually taking the subject matter away from just I love you, he hurt me, she hurt me. There's a little more depth in what it talks about. So there's a lot of aspects of rock music that is great. I know there's blues and blues rock, and then you have, of course, what the Beatles did and all of that. And And soul music is everything has to have soul and that feel in it, or I find it boring as well, as I was saying. And then, of course, funk means take the groove, which is so essential, and make it a little different. So everything is just about being a little more creative with what you do, which crosses into any field of entertainment, including magic. You know,
Yes. Yes,
finding
absolutely.
a little if you study greatly the masters, which is what anyone should do in any field they're in, those that have done it great for years, you have to understand all of that. Then you're capable of doing something unique that's you. So and I still to this day, I keep up with everything going on, the good and the bad and because I want to know who's coming out that's great. Um, and certainly as anyone, of my generation, when you listen to a lot of you kind of go, well, that's not that good, But there is still great artists and great music coming out. It finds its way through. And in my day, it used to be you had music people running the labels. Now it's a little different. It's what's your social media following? I don't need to hear the music. That's the new A&R guy.
Wild. That's wild.
It's just about how young are you and what's your social media following?
Wow.
If you're, and I've heard this from the top people at labels and managers, Lady Gaga's a number of people that's the new game among most of the music industry. And the first question is, how old are you? And if you're 19 or 20, you're a little too old. If you're 17, it's better. And then if you're 13, they love you. That's kind of and then they want to know, did you have enough money from your family or whatever? Do you have 2 million followers? So it's a whole different thing than the industry that I grew up in with people like Ahmet Ertegun and Clive Davis, where they're like, let me hear what you got. Let me hear the music.
Exactly.
Let me
Exactly.
see, is there something magical and unique? Where's the song? And the song is the heart of everything. How's the voice? How's the entertainment? All that's kind of out the door and I understand why, because economically, the music industry, imagine any business where the revenue shrinks by 90%.
Jeepers. Wow. Wow.
Because there's a podcaster, and I can't think of his name right now, out of Atlanta. He did a great show. He said, imagine, for $1 or whatever, every great artist music is available. You know,
Wow.
all the
That's
Beatles catalog, all the class, that's what streaming is. Streaming is every piece of music available for next to nothing. So it's been completely devalued.
yes.
And that's why there's the fascination with social media as an aspect to marketing music artists, is because the money music part of it is is kind of long gone. But then you still have people like there's a new artist out of I think it is Atlanta, Teddy Swims, and he has a record out called Lose Yourself, which by streaming figures did 10 million. And it's great. It's real. I mean, he broke through. He's, overweight guy with white guy with a beard that sings soulfully. But he has this great song and great record. And people still love hearing great music. I mean, we would certainly be in trouble if there was never a good movie again. We'd all be bored to death. We all keep waiting. Where's a new great movie, something to take us out of this world,
Yes.
that high level of entertainment. And that's why, classical music, it fascinates me. 300 years later, still making money, still millions of people that listen to it all the time. And imagine you're the composer 300 years ago. Did you know that 300 years later,
Crazy.
people would
So,
be, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
consumed with
Yeah.
what you created? And that's kind of what I always try to spend my time and energy on. It's just things that can be that great.
It's
And
important too. Escapism versus realism. And my wife and I were sitting one time watching whatever on television, and a lot of it is really dark.
yes,
I'm pretty sure if memory serves. And at this point in my life, it may not. Um, I'm pretty sure as we were growing up, whatever we saw on the screen, the big screen or the small screen, even what we listened to was escapism. It took one away from serious trouble or problems,
Yes.
things going on in the world, and it made us happy or made us forget for that
Forget
period of
about it for a minute.
time.
Have a different, totally escape into that world.
Yes,
Yes, and that's a huge problem with the perception that there's definitely been a lot of media created where it's just all dark and horrible.
yes.
And they would say, well, that's real. That's the way the world is. Okay, fine. You can say that. And maybe there's a bit of truth to that, that the world is ugly and brutal. But I would definitely argue that that's what to use art for, to remind people how terrible everything is and make them feel
Exactly.
awful.
I
And
know, right? It's like,
I mean, even movies have to have villains. But then again, even in the writing of that, I've learned so much from Howard, my partner, from doing this because you know who he learned from is Alfred Hitchcock. That's who he worked with.
wow, wow.
And so I
There was
asked,
a storyteller. There was a storyteller. I could watch his stuff for and have for hours and perhaps even days.
and
Each
it
one is
never
a
becomes dated.
masterpiece.
Yeah, it never becomes dated. And I asked him one Saturday when we were talking because I wanted to know some of the secrets, before they're gone. What did Alfred teach you? And he said, oh, just two things to make a great movie. And he said, one is the story has to almost be like a thread that you can't wait to know what happens next. If you think of Hitchcock's films,
Yes,
you're always like, what's next? What's next? There's never that moment where you're lulled and you're like going, well, like a lot of things now, you're going, what's going on? I have no clue. I've been watching this movie for 30 minutes and I don't even know what's going on.
absolutely. Absolutely.
He said that was one. And the second thing was have amazing characters. And if you think of Hitchcock's movies, they weren't necessarily like, um, you know, Tom Cruise, like really good looking people that were charismatic. Not saying that Tom Cruise isn't really talented, but they were sometimes just really interesting characters.
Yes, I
The
miss
male
that.
and they didn't take away from the story. They didn't become the star wasn't the thing. They were characters in the story.
Absolutely. I miss
And
that. So, when you think of some great actors nowadays, I don't believe I'm saying nowadays. I'm one of those people now that says nowadays. Um, they're a little bit too realistic. They're not characters. They're
yes,
and that bothers me a little bit because it tends to be a little bit flat. Storytelling, television in particular, we don't get to go to a lot of movies anymore unless it's fantasy, like a Wizard of Oz kind of thing or something like that. So that truly bothers me that they're trying so hard to just be plain guys or girls, just regular people.
which speaking
And
of,
and then you see them in
yeah,
their interviews and it's like they're the same.
not right. It's not the same. Speaking of, I got to give a plug because I just watched a movie and it's so rare this happens because I went into it kind of going, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. It was Wicked.
Ah, yes.
And I just went, oh my God, the guy that made this was brilliant. And
Yes.
because I'm thinking like Ariana Grande, come on, pop star and yada yada yada. But I mean the lead, I can't recall her name. She's amazing
The
actress,
green,
singer.
the green one, the green
Yes.
witch.
Oh,
Yes. I think she's from the UK and she's just
yeah.
amazing.
Broadway. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And and the way it ended and everything, I was just like, all right, people still don't know how to make great movies, you know.
Yes. Hopefully that'll be a trend. We'll cross our fingers and eyes and hope that down the road there'll be a lot more of that sort of thing because we do need to escape. We do need to think less. I know that's going to sound a bit superficial, but we need to get away a little bit about what's going on in the world. Otherwise, we're all going to be walking around all depressed, and that's not going to help anybody either. But that's a whole other thing. I do want to get a bit superficial and ask you what your take is on those competition shows. Because as magicians, we have those competition shows you may or may not have seen, like the Penn and Teller and all those other ones. But American Idol is one. What's the
The
one we
Voice.
watch? The Voice, which I personally love. And I never go away without being moved by someone. I'll enter into it sitting like this, and it's like, okay, it's another 20-year-old, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a 40-year-old or even a 50 or 60-year-old singing. And it always catches me off guard because I'll get moved. How do you feel about that whole genre altogether? Is it useful technically or as an entertainment thing or what?
Um, I have kind of mixed feelings. I would rather uh, I was trying to remember what the first one that ever came out was. What was it? The Gong. What was the first talent show where they
I
did that?
think Idol. Oh, the
Way
first years
back.
ago. Yeah.
It wasn't the Gong show. Was it something else?
Yes. There was something before then as well in the 50s even maybe.
Talent
Uh,
contest shows.
yeah.
Um, it's interesting because Dave Stewart and uh, I'm trying to think of his name, the guy from One Republic, created a show spin-off, and it was about songwriters, which is my passion in life, is songs. And it was so people would come on and pitch their songs, and then they'd have like some, great singer sing it or somebody else or do whatever. And I thought that was really interesting because any music artist you look at, their entire career is owes the debt of gratitude to the song that did it for them. It's not them. It's not their personalities.
That's
It's
true.
always one song. I mean, Aretha Franklin, respect. Without respect, she's not Aretha Franklin. Doesn't mean she doesn't have the talent to do everything else, but everybody has one song. I mean, everybody other than the Beatles, who had 20
Yes.
songs. But otherwise, normal artists, have one song. And that's what I liked about that show. The other talent shows, American Idol, The Voice, I usually don't like them because there's a lot of things to be waded through where it's not that good. And also it's it's more spectacle to me than trying to establish great talent. I mean,
Yes.
if Aretha Franklin and Jimi Hendrix and people like that were really coming on the show, I actually like the other one better. What is it? The Simon Cowell's on it. I think that's one of the better shows.
Oh,
Is
yes.
it America's
America's
Got
Got
Talent?
Talent. Yeah.
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 And I also like the fact that it's not always music, right?
Exactly.
I find that more interesting. I mean, it could be even a magician. It could be anything. It's just
Yes.
talent. So I like that because it brings it back to, do you have the talent? And I totally offends me when people come on and they're not that talented at all, and the judges go, "Oh, that was so good." You're
I
going,
know. And I
because
don't
it's
get
show,
that.
it's theater. What are they going to say? You don't want to say. And so the short answer is I usually don't like it because I don't hear enough great. I'm not saying there's never great on there.
Yes.
And I don't really think, I wish there was a better system. And I suppose what's good about it is at least it's something. I mean, it's some way for new people to break through. It does have that going for it, but there's so many things that are required. I mean, a great manager that helps focus and direct and turn someone into an artist.
Yes.
Like, with the Beatles, he knew to Brian knew to dress them up in suits and the cute haircuts and have their wit on display for the world to see. So he knew how to make it reach a lot of people. And yet they never had their artistic integrity compromised with someone telling them what to write or what to play.
Yes. It's different now. It's
Yeah.
different. It's
I mean,
absolutely different. Yeah.
one of my partners in our record company gets a lot of the Disney kids. They come through, he has a studio. and they come through his place to help put things together. So that's like a whole machine, the Disney machine. Good-looking young people that started out at Disney and then go on to have music careers. I mean, if you think of a lot of our current stars, Ariana Grande, um, there's a number of them. They all come from Disney.
Yeah,
They,
Britney Spears.
Justin Timberlake.
Yes, yes. It's crazy. It's
So that
crazy. You know what bothers me a little bit though, and I know my wife will agree with me on this. Let's say we'll actually sit through the 2 hour finale or so of one of those shows,
right.
usually The Voice, and we see the winner and everyone's emotional. That's all well and good. The next day, honestly, we don't remember what song they sang or their name,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
right?
Yeah, there's a lot. Um, there's a lot to be said. I would put I would put number one in the music industry of the single most important thing, without question, is the songs. Everything comes
Yes.
from a song. But the number two most important thing is the artist, or the voice, as they called it, because some human beings have an ability when they sing that it just connects. The greatest example I can think of is Bob Dylan. I mean, no one's ever said Bob Dylan could sing, yet it's not
Yes.
boring. When the words he says and how he sings them really connect. They're magic.
Absolutely.
They're magical. Speaking of magic,
It's true. It's
people that
true.
have magic. And what magic is to me is individuals who they are. There's definitely an innate talent, but when they speak or perform their talent, whatever it may be, it's very organic and not manufactured.
Yes.
Tying
Yes.
back to what's wrong with those shows.
And then there's also Leonard Cohen, another
Well, there you
Montreal
go.
boy. Uh, can't sing, in my opinion, in my humble
There you go.
opinion, but a legend, and he's very much what you're speaking of. It's more than just the voice. It's the content of his
Process. There's a
works, and
soul. Well, a lot of people don't know about the Bob Dylan's favorite record and artist that inspired him was the Staple Singers in the mid 50s. Mavis Staples, young Mavis Staples record. He's sitting in Minneapolis and he hears this record and he's like, oh my God. And those records that they did then, off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of a couple of them because I don't think they were big pop hits. They were just regional hits. They're just magical. They're so soulful. And Pop Staples was using tremolo guitar ahead of its time. There were records that really stood out. That's what inspired Bob Dylan. So Bob Dylan, just like you said about Elvis, came from listening to black music and he wanted to do his soul, and he did. He wasn't trying to copy them. He did himself what he
yes,
loved. So
absolutely. I want to share with everybody a very, very special music video that you've put together recently. And don't kid yourself. I'd really like to talk about it. So,
I,
without
I want
further,
I want to give credit for that. My partner
yes,
in the record company, uh, her name is Tay Smith. She came up with the idea to put it with what was going on with the Los Angeles wildfires and put together the video.
yes.
On the other hand, it was the song that I wrote that has her performing on it and another one of my partners.
Oh,
That's how
beautiful,
that came about.
beautiful. Let's check it out.
Isn't it amazing how birds can fly? Isn't it amazing, you and I? Isn't it amazing, with nothing we still have it all? Isn't it amazing when the rain begins to fall? Isn't it amazing when Isn't it amazing when you just can't get enough? Isn't it amazing, the sound of thunder through the sky? Isn't it amazing how birds can fly?
Oh, and the world around us is so beautiful. We get what we need every day. The heart is a place where you live forever. So just keep holding on to me.
Oh, isn't it amazing when we make love through the night? Isn't it amazing? That's how we end the fight. Isn't it amazing? Throwing caution to the wind. Oh, isn't it amazing? You're my best friend. Ooh, yes, yeah.
And the heart is a place where we live forever. We get what we need every day. And the world around us is so beautiful. We'll make it through if you just stay.
Isn't it amazing? Sometimes dreams do come true. Isn't it amazing? Everything we do. Isn't it amazing when we look up to the sky? Isn't it amazing how birds can fly? Isn't it amazing that birds can fly?
So that was just an amazing, moving experience. The audio, the lyrics, as well as the video. Where is this going to be used? Is it a fundraiser deal?
Well, it's for support of the firefighters. This is actually a record we're going to release with the artist later,
Ah,
Smith Simpson. But when the fires happened, my partner Tay said, I want to use the song and do this video tribute to the firefighters. Because without the firefighters, a lot more of LA would have burned. A lot. And
absolutely.
it was fascinating to watch. Firefighters came from all over the world. Mexico, Canada, every state. It wasn't just local firefighters to stop LA from burning to the ground, which it would have without their efforts.
That was very impressive.
Thank you, Rabina.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you. Wait till you hear the whole thing, not just see it. It's amazing. It's amazing. So, David, I see you have a number of projects as we start to wrap up coming up. Um, you want to talk about Dragonfire, among other things that are coming up?
sure. Dragonfire is something we've developed about this amazing woman who lived in the 1800s. Her name was Helena von Hahn, to some known as Helena Blavatsky. but we went with Helena von Hahn because it's a better sounding name. That was a married name she had. That was her original name. And it's just an incredible story. Um, she was the first woman to be accepted to study with the top Tibetan monastery in the Himalayas to learn all the secrets that they knew.
Yeah.
And this is true. And she eventually ended up in America right after the Lincoln assassination. And her boyfriend was the colonel in charge of the assassination. So if that isn't a great setup for a
Wow.
film, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow. Wow.
she
Wow.
knew martial arts, and she had learned all these amazing things, and her husband. So they go on a quest to try to find the assassins, and it turns out it's this kind of dark group
Yeah.
that assassinated because America was supposed to be the beacon of light for the world, a new way to do things, at least until 3 months ago. No, I'm kidding. A little political joke in there. I couldn't resist. But until then, America was thought of as the beacon of truth and light. And she just did amazing things. I mean, some say she knew magic. She knew a lot of things. And they went on a quest to battle the villains. And it's an incredible story. Um, did you get a chance? If you get a chance, you can go play the treatment.
Okay.
When you play the trailer, um, there's a there's a button that says more. That's the treatment. That's the actual story set to music. I put it all to music.
Oh, wow.
So it's a new digital feature, whereas the words become lit up and you're reading it, you're hearing the music that's supposed to go on in that part of the story.
Oh, awesome. Is
So
that a
that's
yeah?
yeah, so that's Dragonfire. That's what it is. It's an amazing story of a real woman that was ahead of her time in so many ways. I mean, at one point in America, they said 1/3 of Americans were huge fans from her books when she came to America. She brought Eastern thought to America, that woman. Before that, America knew nothing about the cultures of the East to anywhere to
Incredible.
the
Two or
degree that.
three of her books.
Yeah, yeah. What she did was amazing, and they say what motivated it was um, Darwin and a lot of science started saying when we die, we go in the grave. There's no such thing as eternal life.
Mm.
So that was freaking out a lot of people. So then she comes on the scene and says, no, 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 that's reincarnation. There is something else. So it gave people a new hope that there was something beyond death. It's fascinating why that
Beautiful.
timing, you know, but that's,
And
yeah,
when will people be able to see this? Is it available now or?
it's the next thing we'll probably get into. Like, as I mentioned earlier, right now we're focusing on this film, The Warsaw Orphan.
Okay. And there's also in 2028 the LA Olympics project, Celebrate the World. That sounds
Yes,
exciting.
that's in the works too. Yes. Lots of stuff going on.
There is. There is. How can people contact you if they wish to?
Well, right below my face, I see an email there.
So check that out. And I may post it as well. I may put it in post-production in case it's not
Yes.
legible. I want to thank you so much, David Harvey, for joining
Sure.
us this day and sharing your wisdom with us. Yes, I'm calling it wisdom. You may call it observations. I like to call it wisdom.
I call it living a long time.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. In which case, I must be incredibly wise.
That's how it works. We get more valuable. The older we get, the more valuable we get, I always say.
I'd like to think so. I really do. I really do. So I want to thank you for joining us this day. We're just going to temporarily say goodbye to you, and you can stick around if you want. After the theme song, we're going to have the after chat as well. Thanks once again, David
Thank
Harvey.
you. All right. Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you out there for joining me this day. Without you, there's no point. We do it for you guys. So we're here every Saturday at 1 p.m. LA time, 4 p.m. New York time, and it's going to be 9 p.m. UK time starting next week. We'll see you all really soon.